Thank you so much, Sir Kessler. This was a wonderful speech by you. Thank you so much. We have another very interesting speech coming up. And this is, I must appreciate Dr. Muhammad Haji Yusuf, who has been waiting for, I think, half an hour now. I've been told that he's online and he has a very important topic as a keynote speech. Dr. Muhammad Haji Yusuf, if you can hear me, the time is yours now. The mic is yours now. You can start your presentation now. Let me just introduce him. He is an astrophysicist and also an expert in time-related things, relativity, and he has a topic of Ibn al-Arabi's cosmology and his view of time and creation. So please, you can unmute yourself and start your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I really appreciate giving me this opportunity to speak with you. And I thank the organizers and everyone for organizing and listening and attending. So I will share my screen. Let me see how to do that.
So there is an option for you. The technical team must make you allow share your screen. You can share your screen now. There is an option available.
Okay, so I don't see this option.
Right beneath the small icons, there is a share screen icon.
Okay, good. Yes.
Okay.
So I will share. Yes. Now, do you see the?
We can see. Yes, absolutely. We can see.
Okay, great. So that's great. Thank you very much. So my talk will be about the quantum time in Ibn al-Arabi's view of creation. And this is a subject that I have been working on for many years, more than 20 years. So it's my own research, and recently, especially from 2017 or 18, a new development occurred, and actually it's amazing. And I will share with you today some advances in this subject that maybe it's the first time I talk about it. So I'm really excited, and I hope that I will be able to simplify this subject because it's really very complicated, and it is actually interdisciplinary between many subjects, between physics, cosmology, Islamic philosophy, epistemology, and a lot of ontology. You can count all these logic things. And so I hope that the time is enough to present these ideas. So let me start straight away by showing the brief outline of my talk. Can you please confirm that you see the screen updated, because I'm not sure if I have to make it.
We can absolutely see that, sir.
So good. Good, great. So my talk will be mainly 3 or 4 parts. First, I have to introduce the philosophy and science of quantum and related things. So I have to speak about the discreteness and continuity in philosophy and in science in various different series, including the ancient series and also the modern relativity and quantum series. So I will talk about some paradoxes that shows in the end that whether you adopt the quantum or the continuous or the discrete, whether you adopt this way or the other, you will inevitably end up with some paradoxes. So I will then show that only the view of Ibn al-Arabi, his view of time and creation, otherwise also known, maybe most famously known as the oneness of being, this view is, when it's understood in correct way, can solve these paradoxes, both ancient philosophical paradoxes and also the modern scientific paradoxes. So I will speak about the single monad model, which I have developed from 1999 till 2004. And it was a subject of my PhD thesis. And then I will speak about the duality of time theory, which has been working on since 2016 or 17. And the main idea in this theory is the recreation principle based on one important verse in Quran, which says that the creation is renewed or being recreated, the cosmos, the whole cosmos is being recreated at every moment of time. So the creation of the cosmos or the heavens and the earth in 6 days is not like what many interpreters believe, that it's like each day 1,000 year or each day 50,000 year. It's actually not related to time at all. It's a creation of the state of the geometry of space-time. Every moment of time, it's created in 6 directions. This is the meaning of 6 days. And then the 7th dimension is the dimension of time. So in the end, the theory or the view is summarized in what I call the complex time geometry, which is my third and most important part of the talk. So in this, I will show that even space is actually composed of time. So every point of space is made in sequence, in certain sequence. So the dimensions of geometry, which are 6, or actually 3, if you call them, if you speak about space, it's 3 dimensions. But I showed that each one dimension of space is actually made of 2 time dimensions. So they are actually 6 plus the 7th, as I said. So these 7 or 6 plus 1 dimensions of time can be expressed in complex numbers. And therefore, in this new view, the speed of light, which is a major factor in science, especially in the theory of relativity, has a new meaning, and therefore it will be identical with the dimensions of geometry. And therefore, when you understand this, you will be surprised that only one verse in Quran, very short verse, combines both the theory of relativity and the quantum theory and shows their limits and how you can overcome their limits, as I will show in the following slides. And then I will also conclude very quickly, and then I here have given to you the link for this paper or short book, which you can download from my website, which is smonad.com, singlemonad.com. So I will try by showing you this verse from Quran, from Surah Ar-Rahman, the All-Merciful. And I will not read it all, but I will explain that this verse, كل يوم هو في شأن, is this verse is actually the key verse on which I showed, based on Ibn al-Arabi's understanding, that time is quantized. And we know that in modern theories, they mostly come to the conclusions that time must be quantized. They don't know how. There are many suppositions or many propositions, but no one knows how. And actually, no one could ever know without really studying these verses and studying Ibn al-Arabi's understanding of time, which is actually inner and outer. So when you study the dimensions of time and you take the inner and outer, and then the speed of light becomes the dimensions of geometry, then you will know that both the series of relativity, whose principle is that you can never exceed the speed of light, and then the quantum mechanics, which says that everything is quantized eventually. And in reality, I showed that this means also that we cannot really go below a certain limit of dimension. So we are actually living between 2 and 3 dimensions, although we think that we live in 3 dimensions, but actually we are living within the 3 dimensions. So this verse here that is in green, it means in English, if you don't read Arabic, and this is my own translation, because usually it's translated in other manner, but I will give maybe more accurate and more literal translation. So Allah is saying here in this verse calling the people or the creatures of inner and outer, which are the jinn and ins. So we are the outer because we are actually living in 3 dimensions, and the jinns are the inner because they are in the lower dimension. So Allah is saying, if you could penetrate or go through the dimensions of heavens and earth, then you should do, but you would not be able without a sultan, without a ruler, or without a support or a guide, or without certain energy. So this means that we are confined between the lower and higher dimensions of geometry, between 2 and 3. The 3 is the upper limit, which is the limit of theory of relativity. And the 2 is the lower limit, which is the quantum mechanics. And we are confined between them. And our world, as science has found, the conclusion is that the world is both quantum and also relativistic at the same time, but these 2 theories are contradictory. They are mutually contradicting each other. So sometimes it looks quantized, and sometimes it must obey the theory of relativity, especially when you speak about the macrocosmos, while the quantum world usually covers the atomic or microcosmos. So this conflict can be only resolved when you understand how time is really flowing, and that it is inner and outer. So here comes the duality of time, and this is based on the single monad model that I have developed, as I said, in the early 2000, maybe up to 2004, and then developed further into the duality of time. So let me start, therefore, after this quick introduction, and I would like to start with this quote by the greatest master, Ibn al-Arabi, from his major book of the Meccan Revelations. He says that the science of time is a noble science that reveals the mystery of eternity. Only the elites of sages may ever come to know this secret or this mystery. This is called the first age, or the age of ages, from which time is emerging. And here I would like to tell you that everyone who have studied modern science, and especially cosmology and physics, knows that everyone comes to the conclusion that everything should be emerging. For example, mass is emerging property, energy is emergent property, also space should be emergent property, and also time. So if you understand how time is emerging, really you understand this mystery of eternity, and therefore you understand how you could break out of time, as the theory of relativity already sometime in some interpretations already predict that one can at least time is relativistic, and there must be a point where one can maybe break out of time. So this can happen only if you understand the inner and outer dimensions, as I explained. So I would like first now, therefore, to start by showing the conflict between the opposing views of discreteness and continuity. And in philosophy, this has been shown. In various manners, especially by using or through the paradoxes of motion proposed by Zeno more than 2,500 years ago. And Zeno wrote a book he included in it more than 40 problems or thought experiments, in which he showed that, as I introduced, he showed that whether you adopt the continuous or the discrete views of space and time and also matter, whether you adopt this view or the opposite view, you will inevitably end up with conflict or paradox. And the problem is that these two opposing views, they are mutually exclusive. So the world can either be continuous or quantized or discrete. There is no other way according to our normal understanding. But I will show that there is a way, which is the oneness. That is the oneness of being, but only when it's understood correctly according to the greatest master Muhyiddin Ibn al-Arabi. So Zeno showed, he gave some exercises or some problems, some experiments. He shows that, for example, if you want to move from point A to point B, you have to cross the middle point, and then the 1/4, and then 1/8, and so on. But mathematically, if you add half plus 1/4 plus 1/8 plus 1/16 plus, if you add all these together, you will get less than 1. So you could never really go from point A to point B. That is, if you suppose that you can divide infinitely. So the only way to refute this is to suppose that the space is not infinite, is not continuous, but it is discrete. The problem is that if you suppose that space is discrete, which is the background, so this means that at every point, the object, any object, is actually stated in this point, and therefore it's not moving, because to be in a point is to have a 0 velocity in this point, and therefore at every point the velocity should be 0. So how come the total velocity is not 0, whereas at every point the velocity is 0? So in the end, I don't want really to spend too much time on it. Maybe you can find a lot of literature on this problem. It's philosophical problem. It's famous and known, and it's more than 2,500 years old. And until now, nobody has ever been able to refute, although modern physics has found a way to calculate velocity, and many theories we have now, including classical mechanics and quantum mechanics and so on. But all these theories only describe what is happening. They do not describe how it's happening. So they do not describe how motion is occurring. But according to Zeno, motion is impossible. So whether you suppose the space continuous or you suppose it discrete, you will end up with a paradox. So this is in philosophy, and in modern science, this same problem occurred again in the what is called the double slit experiment, in the interference of waves, whether light or other kinds of waves. And also, I cannot really spend too much time on this, but it's very famous. So the problem, as I said, showed in this that light behaves clearly like waves, which is a continuous phenomena. However, there is a certain experiment or effect known as the photoelectric effect, in which Einstein proposed that light is behaving like particles, which are called photons, and therefore there is a duality. So light sometimes behave like waves, sometimes behave like particles. And later it has been discovered that it's not only light, but actually everything, even electrons, protons, and even large molecules, and sometimes drops of water or drops of oil, they sometimes behave like waves and behave sometimes like particles. And again, these two different phenomena are mutually exclusive. They cannot be, nothing can be both at the same time, because waves are extended and particles are localized. So waves are continuous and particles are discrete or quantized. So there is always this conflict, as I said, whether you take it in philosophy or in physics or modern science, always you will have this conflict, and everybody knows that these major problems that I have listed, some of them here, still they persist. No one knows how we can solve them. For example, what is really the speed of light? There is also the EBR paradox. I cannot explain it now. The cosmological constant problem, which is a very big conflict between quantum mechanics and relativity, and quantum gravity, which suppose that the geometry must be quantized, but no one knows how, and other problems. So what I will show in the remaining of my talk is that most, or if not all, of these problems can be really easily solved, or actually they are eliminated when you take the recreation principle or Ibn al-Arabi's view of time based on one verse in Quran, in which Allah says that we are in lapse of recreation. So we don't really notice the recreation, but actually the world is being recreated in 6 days and then displayed on time. So only we see it, we see the world after it's created. We don't see the creation process itself. That's why we imagine it is continuous, but in reality, it is being recreated. So when you say recreation, instantly you get the quantization, because it means like it's frames, going in frames, as I will show in the following slides. So let me start by giving a very quick, really very quick view of Ibn al-Arabi's creation process, how this cosmos has been created by Allah, the greatest, the exalted. So Ibn al-Arabi says in chapter 371 of his book, the Mecca Revelations, he says, and I will really have to move very quickly, he says that when Allah wanted to create the universe or the cosmos, he first created an unknown to us, number of spirits. Ibn al-Arabi calls them the roaming spirits, because these spirits has been created directly by God, and they know nothing but their creator. So they don't even have self-consciousness. They only know their creator. So they are roaming in his majesty. And then when Allah wanted to create the world, he appointed one of these creators that is then called the universal intellect, or the single monad. From here comes the single monad model. So this intellect or spirit, Allah manifested to him and created to him a shadow in which he will write, and this is literal writing, he will write the word letter by letter or character by character. So this shadow is called the universal soul or the protected tablet, and that's why also the universal intellect is called the first pen or the higher pen. And this universal soul has two forces or two characteristics. One is the intellectual, and one is the kinetic or the motion. And from here comes the quadratic rule of nature, which are the four elements that really control or governs everything in nature. And I want to say here that these four elements actually have modern meanings. They are not really according to their maybe ancient view. So we have the heat and wet and dry and cold, or the earth and air and water and fire. But actually they are these are not the normal elements that we know. However, they are actually quantum fields, as I have shown in my papers and books. So these are actually quantum fields. So they are extreme states. And therefore, the prime matter is composed of these four extreme states, as I will show maybe in more details later. And then within this prime matter, the whole cosmos appeared. First appeared the universal body, and then the throne, and then the pedestal, and then the galaxies and stars appeared within this. As I said, I have to move quickly because there are more important things to talk about, but you can check out my papers and books and show the details of these different orbs and how they are rotating and their spatial dimensions and everything. So in the end, these are the various zodiac signs, and then these are the galaxies, and then this is the surface of fixed stars, which Ibn al-Arabi showed that they are actually not fixed, but they are called so in philosophy. And that's why, because they are very slow, so people believe that they are fixed. So these are actually the stars, and then within this orb is a solar system, including all the planets, and then the Earth, and so on. And here you can show that there are 7 levels of Earth, and it's plotted here as a plane, whereas the heavens are semi-spherical. And this really means that these are 2-dimensional levels, and the heavens are 3-dimensional levels. And as I told you, we are confined between the 2 and 3 So we are three-dimensional beings, but we are in three dimensions and not reached a complete three dimensions. So when you reach the complete, when you really reach the third dimension, you will be above the three, and therefore this will be the hereafter, which is after this lower world ends, we will end up with a higher level of dimension. So therefore, this all views is I told you that can be understood based on the single monad model and the recreation principle. So Allah says in Quran in various verses that He created the heavens and earth by the real or by the truth, and this is a single monad. So this real, which is the only monad or the only entity that has a real being, is actually manifesting over and over again, and therefore creating the dimensions, but each point at a time. That's why in ancient philosophy we have a famous maxim that says, "From the one, only one can proceed." But then Ibn al-Arabi says that this can only be true if you add this at a time. So from the one, yes, only one can proceed, although we now see multiplicity, but logically, if you have one who is the creator, then how can one meet multiple things at the same time? So he must be conversed if you think in logic. But to get out of this, only you add at a time. So this means that really from one, only one can proceed, but at a time. And actually, this is the verse in Quran in which I quoted at the beginning, which says, let me read it in Arabic, يَسْأَلُهُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ كُلَّ يَوْمٍ هُوَ فِي شَأْنٍ. So everything in heavens and earth is asking God, asking Allah. And this doesn't mean asking by tongue, only asking by their mere presence. It's asking God to preserve their presence or their existence. Then the response is, each day He is upon one event or one task. So Allah actually creates only one thing at a time. And then these different things which are manifested here in the circumference, we are living on this circumference, which is the world. So we see multiplicity, but this multiplicity is only created one point at a time, and therefore layered into dimensions, one dimension, which are the dimension of angels, and two dimensions, which are the world of jinn, and then our dimension, which is the three dimensions or 6 days. And then in the hereafter, I suppose, I don't really know exactly, but I imagine that it will be real fourth dimension. It's not like what physicists speak now about the fourth dimension, but it will be a real physical fourth dimension. So you will be able to see the whole volume at once. Just like now we look and see 2 dimensions at a time, we see a 2-dimensional picture. Then if you go to the third, above the 3rd dimension, you will be able to see the volume at once. Everything that the volume includes, and not only in physical, but also the inner meanings of things. So really the view is complicated, as I explained, but the main principle here is that there is only one entity that is called the real, and then everything else is only manifestations of this real, and these manifestations are layered in the inner dimensions of time and displayed in the outer dimension, and therefore things are really quantized. But since we are living and we are in lapse, we are living in this multiplicity, and we don't see the creation process itself, then we see continuity. We imagine that we are continuously moving, but we are actually being recreated every moment. So every moment of time, we are being recreated in 6 days, which means 6 dimensions or 6 directions of time, and then we are displayed, or we see this happening in the 7th, which is the time.
Sir, we are running short of time. Can you please conclude this?
Yes. inshallah, very quickly I will try. So yeah, this is actually the main idea, the recreation principle based on the single monad model. And therefore I will skip here on 1 or 2 slides. And then I will show you that this figure shows how we have the inner time and the outer time. And this is expressed mathematically using the complex numbers. And therefore this is called the complex time geometry. So when you take this into account, you have really to revise the geometry itself, which means that you have to revise the Euclidean geometry or the 5 axioms of geometry. So if you understand that that the speed, if you understand that the inner dimensions are made in time, so you don't have now space time, but you have time. So you have outer time and inner time, and therefore the speed of light, which is a distance per time, becomes time per time, inner per outer time, and therefore it becomes the same as the dimensions of geometry, but they are actually fractal, as I showed, and they change between 2 and 3. So that's why the verse in that I quoted at the beginning, and I was expected that time will not be enough to explain this. So that's why I quoted at the beginning. So we are confined between 2 and 3, and we are supposed to seek to break out of this. And the only way to break out of this is by inner contemplation with God. And therefore he will give us the sultan, the ruler, which is the time, that can take us out of this world, because we are going to break out anyway, either by normal death or by dying, but not physical dying, by self or inner. So we understand our reality that is really nothing. And then when you understand that, you understand and experience that you are nothing but a pure servant of God, and God is giving you everything at every moment of time, not has given and empowered you to work with, but every moment he is creating you, and he creating things for you. So if you understand your servanthood and God's relation, your relation with God, then Allah may give you this, and then you will be able to break out of time, and you will see this whole world as you can see now, the screen in front of you now. You look and see images at once, and you understand their colors and their relations, and you can see motion, but you are seeing from outside. If you are inside this, you will not be able to see it in as you see it now. So if you break out of time by the sultan that Allah may give you, if you do the proper contemplation, which is what the Sufis do, and this is what Ibn al-Arabi's method, and he explained in many books. So if you break out of time, you will see the whole world all at once, and therefore you will see the meanings of things and their inner meanings and outer form. And I will try to only mention one thing, that what you can see in the papers that I have posted the link, that I have used this idea to make many derivations of mathematical equations, including the famous Einstein equation and other problems that I can really have to skip now. So I would like to say thank you, and Allah says the truth, and he guides to the correct path. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Jazakallah. Thank you so much. This was an excellent speech, and I really appreciate you giving us time from your precious schedule and busy schedule. We have Dr. Joseph Kaminski from Bosnia and Herzegovina, but before that,